Oh no.
We're live.
Hey, we're live on YouTube. What's up, nerds? Welcome to the NX21 launch week live stream. We're really excited to join you here with Mike. You're our director of DevRel, right? That's your title?
That's what it says in our HR stuff. Yeah.
Love that. Jason, Gene, lead NX core team?
Yeah, something like that.
Something
Lead
like
of
that.
the
The most important person on the NX core team.
And Jack,
Lead
you
of
have
everything.
what's your title again?
I guess technically I should introduce myself as the director of engineering. But for the scope of this live stream, I guess I'm one of the other senior members of the NX COI team or the NX open source team.
All right. And I'm Philip Fulcher. I'm on the DevRel team. You've seen me a lot this week as we've gone through videos and articles for NX21. So we wanted to sort of cap off the week with a review of everything that has happened, everything we've gone through, and give you the option to answer get some questions answered in the comments. So definitely throw those in, and we will sort of pepper those throughout. But we've got a lot to cover. We want to go ahead and get started. Mike, start us out talking about the terminal UI.
1 second. Posting to Blue Sky. I wanted to make sure that other people are going to be here. Cool. Yeah, we're talking about terminal UI. The terminal is not something that I think everyone would say is like the most important piece, but as a big terminal user, I love a good terminal UI, and I don't want any terminal UI to really be annoying or to hide information. I think that's also just kind of like something most people forget about. So we have like a brand new terminal UI that I think really just is leagues above everybody else's, and it's been a lot of work and a lot of trial and error to make sure that we get things working really great. In fact, I think we have something from James who wrote a lot of the initial work.
I'm going to try and keep this brief.
Sorry about that. That started immediately, but yes, we've got a video from James. He wasn't able to join us today. Time zones are hard with a globally distributed team, so he was able to record something to share with us. But we're good.
Yeah, play it.
All right, here we go.
Much good stuff here, but I don't want to take up too much of your time in this live stream. I'm sorry that I couldn't join in person. But yeah, the TUI, as we call it, the terminal interface is something I'm super excited about and passionate about. And I'm very proud of what the team's managed to ship with NX21. Even though this is very early, like this is the first version we're shipping, I think we've achieved an awful lot. And I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback so that we can refine it even further. So this is Hanged ESLint. It's an open source project with multiple JavaScript packages in. It's an NX workspace. Anything I cover here is applicable to all NX workspaces. So there's nothing specific about a certain stack or even a programming language or ecosystem. The terminal UI itself is written in Rust, and it's part of our Rust core that we have. So it's performant and very offers a lot of flexibility for us. So let's run NX run many. And I'll just run some lint tasks. I'll run without the cache. I'll make sure of that for now. So we will see a bunch of tasks running. We'll see a load of stuff in parallel at the top here, which is pretty cool. And then once it's done, it's going to prompt me that it's going to exit automatically. This is a behavior you can configure. You can make it always immediately exit automatically, never exit automatically, or exit automatically after a certain countdown. Right now, we count down for 3 seconds before exiting. So you have the chance to choose to stay in the TUI experience if you want to play with the logs before you exit. So speaking of playing with the logs, we can navigate our task list with up and down, or we can also use the home row, J and K. And if we have a smaller terminal window, for example, a shorter one, you'll see we actually get pagination here automatically, and it re-renders as I resize the terminal. So now I can additionally navigate left and right between pages, or H and L between pages super fast. So I can also just keep going up and down, obviously. So those are some of the navigation features that you have. We have some inline help around some of these keyboard shortcuts, but it's impossible to fit everything down there. So we have question mark to pop open this cool dialog. And again, I can use my arrow keys to scroll, or I can use J and K to scroll up and down. And all of the docs and the help is listed here, so you can investigate that in your own time. Once I've explored that, you'll see a cloud message came back, because this workspace is hooked up to NX Cloud, so we can display cloud feedback here directly in the TUI, which is pretty cool. So I skipped the NX cache, so that wasn't involved here. If I rerun and this time I don't skip the NX cache, this time we'll obviously run the tasks, and this time we get the feedback from NX Cloud that we have a cloud run that we can look at straight away, so I can command click on that like we're used to in any terminal app, and I can open that in NX Cloud and explore the logs that way. So that's pretty cool. Now you'll notice we have all cache hits, so there was nothing about the artifacts that were different, so we've kept the existing one, so we can see that granular cache status over here. We can see that it took barely a millisecond, less than a millisecond in many cases, to resolve that cache status, and there's cached artifacts and terminal output. And then when it comes to terminal output, I can have a look at it in multiple different ways. So I can press space, and this will open it, like spacebar mode effectively means that I will open a tab which is not yet focused. My focus is still on the task list. So you'll see this is kind of dimmed, and it has this prompt that I can tab onto it. So if I press tab, now you'll see it's bright and it's kind of illuminated, and this is dimmed over here in the task list. So now if I press up and down, I'm navigating, I'm scrolling on the task terminal output. And if I had a lot of terminal output on here, for example, if this was smaller, I can press Control U and Control D to super quickly jump up through the terminal output. So I can tab back and forth between the different areas, the task list and the terminal pane, or I can press Escape to also leave the focus of the current terminal output pane. The idea with this spacebar mode is that I can quickly toggle between different outputs. So I can navigate on my task list, and it will change what's in the rendered pane. That's not always what you want. Sometimes you want to pin a certain task to be seeing it all the time and navigate around. So you can press 1 to force this to be the pinned output in pane number 1. And then I'm freely moving around the task list, but I'm not changing the output. And I say number 1 because I can also pin more than one pane. So if I press 2, I can pin multiple tasks, and I can tab between multiple tasks. I can shift tab to go the other direction as well. And you'll see the tab prompt is moving around. So now we have multiple tasks we can interact with independently and see them side by side. If this layout isn't quite right for you based on your terminal dimensions, you can also force a layout change. So you can press M to change to a vertical layout where the task list is on top and you have your one or more terminal panes on the bottom. This can be very useful for certain setups and certain scenarios. And finally, if I change to just go back to the task list, and there's another way to kind of quickly jump to pin a task and focus it, and that's pressing enter. So if you press enter on a task, we've now pinned it and I'm focused on it. So that again can be useful for certain scenarios. So I'll press escape to leave that. As you'll notice, when we have the terminal output pane open, the bottom section dynamically resizes itself. So we have the most important data, we have our URL, and we have a couple of helpful prompts down here, but the available space is changing, so it dynamically knows that it needs to render less. So finally, what I'll cover here just to finish off, because again, I could talk about this for about 40 minutes, but we better be nice and quick. If I open this project, the builder project, I've added a made-up target here, which wasn't here before, called test:watch. And what's significant about this is a continuous task. And this is another new feature with NX21, which goes hand in hand with the TUI. They make each other much better. So because we've marked that as continuous, if we run NX test watch now on builder, there's a few things going to happen. We've only run one task, so the TUI knows intelligently, okay, I should open this pane straight away because the user only has the one task. Not only that, it's focused on the task straight away, and it's rendered it in a vertical layout because that often makes a lot of sense for a single task. Again, though, the control is there. If you want to force a different layout, you can with M. So because I'm zoomed in here, this might actually be better to be side by side in this particular case. But you'll see the duration now is continuous rather than a particular number, and we're just continuing to run in this in progress section. Because we're highlighted on this immediately, we see this is non-interactive right now, and I have the option to press I to make it interactive. So if I press I, now I'm in interactive mode, and anything I type will now be sent to this process instead of the TUI. So I can press A, for example, this Jest thing is saying I can press A to run all tests. So I press A, and Jest has run all my tests. I pressed enter, and it's interrupted it. I can press W to interact with this menu. I can press enter again to trigger a test run. I can also kill this process from inside the process. So if I do Control C in here, you can see now this task has stopped, and it has a stopped status over here as well. And NX knows that the process finished, it's completed. But if I leave the TUI, it knows that I canceled the process. So the overall status here is canceled. So this is really, really powerful. And if you think about long-running continuous tasks and this interactivity and the fact that we can have multiple panes, so I can just simulate it by having 2 of the same thing right now, you can have your end-to-end tests and your web app or your API server or whatever side by side in 2 panes and see the streaming output from both of them side by side as you're developing, and see those changes and interact with any interactive prompts on like a Vite dev server, for example, things like that. So again, this has been a whistle-stop tour. I hope you thought it's cool. I really think it's cool, and I can't wait for you to play with it and give your feedback. It supports light and dark modes. One thing to be aware of is if you change your theme midway through, you'll need to restart the TUI to get the benefit of the different themes, because there's no current detection for when you change your theme at a terminal level. So yeah, look forward to hearing from you, and best of luck using the TUI.
That was like the easiest introduction for a feature ever.
And it was so good, I found myself like nodding along with it, like I was actually like in the room with James. Like what a great video.
He was showing off the whole, oh, we can just stop the task inside of the the window, and I was like, oh, so that's what that was, because I had accidentally triggered that, and I was like, I did not realize that we supported that, which is so cool. So there's been James did a great overview of everything, but he did highlight something that was really cool in there, and that's this concept of continuous tasks. I think it's something that we have had an RFC open for quite some time, but with 21, we actually have some updates on that. Philip, you said you were going to talk about continuous tasks?
I would love to talk about continuous tasks. So continuous tasks, we've had like a few videos about it. Like every single time we talk about the terminal UI, we also talk about continuous tasks, because they're like the peanut butter and jelly of NX21. They make each other better. The terminal UI was necessary for us to be able to pull off continuous tasks. So what continuous tasks are tasks in your workspace that are long running. And to a certain extent, you've always been able to do that, right? Like you've been able to serve applications, you've been able to serve your API, you've been able to run your tests in watch mode. What you haven't been able to do is actually make those tasks part of a task pipeline so that they can be depended on. And so that's the big change that's come in with continuous tasks. And we needed the terminal UI for that, because when we're running so many different tasks in parallel, like based on your task pipeline, like if we're serving your front end and your back end, maybe we're running like your end-to-end tests on top of that, we really needed a way to be able to like separate out those logs so that you could actually see what was going on and very easily sort of select the content that you wanted to see. And so that terminal UI has enabled the entire concept of continuous tasks, because if we just did continuous tasks, you would just have like a terminal output that was just like full of logs from different places. And how would you ever like actually separate them? It would be an actively worse experience, even if we had like enabled this really cool thing of allowing continuous tasks to be in a pipeline. I don't want to get into like too many details, because we have a full dedicated video on continuous tasks and an article. So please check out the blog and our YouTube channel for those if you really want to get into like some of the details. But I want to show you a quick example of what continuous tasks does for you. So as soon as I find my own screen to share.
Just don't share the wrong one.
I'll share all of them. I'll share what I want, Jack. Don't tell me what to do. All right. Okay. So what I have here is, this is actually the example that I went through for like the video and article that we had. And so if I show you the project graph for this project, it has a front end that's based in React. That
One
depends
second,
on.
Philip. Are you sharing your screen? Because I don't think I can see it.
You can't see it?
Yeah, I thought it was just me for a second. I'm like,
Now
wait.
I can see it.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay, we're all good now. I wanted to avoid saying, hey, can you see my screen on stream? But hey, it's the year 2025 and we still have to ask, can you see my screen? All right, so we've got this graph. We have a front end project. It depends on a library. It also has an API, which is using GraphQL, and we share some generated models between the API and the front end using this models GraphQL library. And what I want to show you is there is also a playwright configuration here. So we run end-to-end tests, and these end-to-end tests actually rely on some of that data coming back from the API. We want to be able to see like our results actually being populated from the API in our list. And so we have playwright configured to run NX Dev front end. And let's see what actually happens when we run this. Okay, so it's running for a while. If you've used Playwright, you can probably tell this isn't going to pass, right? Like it's got a 30-second timeout, but eventually we'll see that this is not going to pass because what it's going to fail on is actually checking that test for the front end. So if we were to actually look at this test, the first one saying like, find the H1, that's always going to be there. But this first result has initial results. We're looking for something to contain Voltron. And there we go. We have our fail. Initial results, it doesn't have it. And that's because the backend is required to be able to run that. So we're going to quit out of this and we're going to solve this really, really quickly because what we want to do is have our task of front-end dev to actually depend on the API serve so that anytime we spin up the front end, we're also spinning up the API. And the way we do that is we're going to go into a project.json. This is also available in like package.json. However you're configuring your projects, you can use this. And I'm just going to uncomment this little thing. So for our target of dev, it's going to depend on our project of API with a target of serve. And if we save this, now the problem's going to be fixed. If I go back into my console, first I will run the front end dev so that we can see in the terminal UI what's going to happen is it's going to be running a lot of things based on that. So we have front end dev running. We actually have the API serve running right here. And then we also have some like GraphQL code gen going on in the background. If you want to see how that got set up, definitely check out the video and the article. But now every time we run one command, front end dev, we're also going to serve the back end. Our development's going to be a lot easier. If I shut this down and then rerun that E2E task, we're going to see this pass immediately because the results were already available in the back end. And that test was able to pass. So this is how easy it is. It's just a few lines of configuration to be able to point from like a front end to a back end. And very, very quickly, you'll see results. This all works in CI as well. So rather than having like more complicated end-to-end configurations in your, your CI workflows, you can just rely on these continuous tasks. Just a wild game changer in terms of like trying to make your developer experience as easy as possible. There's no more remembering to run the back end and your code gen and whatever else you need to be able to support your front end. You just run the front end and NX takes care of the rest of it in the background for you.
That's super cool. And like, I think the CI part is very important because we kind of have this way to kind of express the dependency in the past, but it prevents certain things to be optimized in CI. Like if you have an E2E task, you can't say it depends on the serve, which depends on the build, right? Like you have to make sure you kind of wire it up somewhere else outside of NX. And that means like if you have Playwright that runs the web serve command, it may or may not have the build target already finished, meaning you might run it twice in CI. And we've seen that in the past too. So with this, you shouldn't be doing that anymore, or at least Cloud and NX shouldn't be doing that anymore. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it's actually like a performance improvement in CI as well, because before NX21, if you were to try to run end-to-end tests in parallel, like 2 of them will try to start on the same port and they will complain to each other, right? So one of them is going to fail, other one will pass, and it'll be a nightmare. So don't do that before NX20. But for NX21, we have like a ton of end-to-end tasks now, right? Because we have atomized every file, and we wanted a way to parallelize that as well. But we were restricted in how we could do that without continuous tasks. So right now, what will happen after NX21 or with NX21 is you can run tasks in parallel, and then those will finish. The server will stay running actually until it receives its next batch of tasks. And if that next batch of tasks also needs that server, the server's already up and running. So it'll just run straight from there, and it reduces a lot of work being done in CI, just having to shut down the server, restart the server, shut down the server, restart the server. Now the server should stay running. And when all the end-to-end tests are done, the server will go away.
We'll have to create a stat to show how much time we've saved with continuous tasks.
Yeah, I know that like when Yuri and I have been talking about this and talking about like upcoming like videos or like examples that we want to give up continuous tasks, like the meeting inevitably turns into, oh, we could do this. Oh, and then we could do that. And like, it's like, when you're talking about like running Storybook or like running tests against Storybook and all the different things that you have to like line up in terms of, this depends on that. It's really, really cool. And I think that's a sign of like how excited we are about this is like a basis of like why we're so excited to get out in the open and see what else people are doing with it and what other people figure out how to do with continuous tasks.
Speaking of, shall we see another use case for a continuous task?
Absolutely. Hit us, Jack, with module federation improvements.
All right, that's I think my screen is shared. Can you see it? Or maybe there we go.
There it is. Cool.
Okay, so for those who are not familiar, we've had module federation support for a number of years. First with Webpack, now with RSPack as well. So I'm going to be just showing RSPack here. So you can see I have a shell, or in the new nomenclature, it's called consumer and 2 remotes or 2 producers. And if I go to the Webpack config for one of them, it's going to look something like this, which is new in NX21. So in the past, you'll see something more like with NX, right, like that. And then, that's not what I wanted. And then something called like with NX module federation. In the new setup, because it was not possible to run things through, say, the Webpack CLI or the RSPack CLI, because what we export here is actually not standard config. It was something specific to our executors, meaning like it was a function that takes in some context that we provide and then spits out a Webpack config. If you try to use that with the CLI, like a RSPack CLI, it's going to complain. In a new setup, what you get by default in NX21, it's just a normal configuration. It has nothing to do with NX. I mean, plugins aside. But you can run this through the CLI. You can see that here. If I go to the project itself, the build, the serve, it's just calling RSPack serve, RSPack build, right? So it's pretty cool. So that unlocks the whole thing here with the inferred tasks with the RSPack plugin, which means we can now set up something that we already talked about, which is continuous tasks. So if you use module federation with NX before, you'll recall something like, how do I brand the terminal here? There you go. Something like NX serve, and then you have to serve the shell first, and then you have to pass it like dev remotes, and remote 1, remote 2, stuff like that. You no longer have to do that anymore. And it was always kind of awkward because like if you're on a feature team, say you have like a feature called cart or like a feature called products, instead of serving like NX serve products, I'm serving shell and then passing in this very specific option to serve up the products in order to develop against it. Now, with continuous task, you no longer have to do that, because what we will do is if you do NX serve remote 1, you'll see the nice TUI again, and you'll see the shell here. It's actually being served up as well as the remote one that I'm actually developing against. And prior to NX21, this is not possible. That's why we had the option like dev remotes, static remotes, whatever. Now you don't have to do that anymore. So it's much, much simpler. So if you go here, sorry. Okay, I know which board it is. So if I go here, you can see it works just as normal, right? I can see the show, I can see the remotes. And because I'm on remote 2, if I just do this, I can edit, for example, the remote 2 app TSX. Oops, sorry, I don't use VS Code normally, so app TSX. Yeah, so if I do like a bunch of these, I can save, and it should. It's supposed to hot reload. It was just working when I was doing this earlier, but now it's not doing it.
The curse
Not
of
sure
the
why.
live demo.
Yes, exactly. Let me try. Oh, you know why? Because I'm stupid. I did remote 1, not 2. Okay. So now, once it's served up, it's super fast because it's using RSPack. Right. So now if I do this, you can see a live remote, right? Sorry, the live reload is there. So all the things that you're used to with the previous setup, it all works. And the good news too is if you're using Angular and you're using Webpack with Module Federation, there's a convert to RSPack generator that you can use, which will not only enable RSPack instead of Webpack, it will also convert you to this new setup. For the React Module Federation, it's not quite going to convert you to this. Because what we did is we did both the convert to Webpack, or sorry, convert from Webpack generator. You also have to convert the executors to the plugin to infer the targets to get a continuous tasks. Those are now broken up into 2 separate things, just because it was marked, or it was deemed like a little bit safer to do one migration first, check, and then do the next migration. So we don't have one to like convert everything in one go like we do with Angular. But we will be producing some recipe for people to follow sometime next week. So if you're in the old setup, you'll get this new one, and you'll get continuous tasks, and everything's just a lot more simple. So I guess if you're wondering, like so far we've been talking about NX21, and you're currently on NX20 or 19 or whatever, and you're wondering, how do I upgrade? Well, first of all, you should already know you can run NX migrate, right? So you can always do this. This has always been a command that we support, which will update packages, run some migration for code configuration, whatever. The feedback that we got in the past is that although it's very powerful, people love it. Sometimes it's not super clear what they should be doing in the middle of like certain migrations, because we say like you can skip migrations if you want, review the generated migrate.json, but it wasn't clear what they can do with it. And although the API is very powerful, some people get kind of scared about all the power that we provide them. So I will show another demo here to look at what you can do in the new console version. So here I have an example where I'm, for some reason, not on the latest and greatest NX yet, right? So I'm on NX20, and what you'll see is, first of all, it'll tell us, and this has already been like the case for a long time, it'll say that there's actually a new version of NX, so you should do something, e.g. migrate. And then once you click on it, you'll see a new migrate UI, or like a migrate information about there's a new version of NX, you should probably migrate. So let's start that migration and see what it does. So again, this is not really using any new features that we had to build. It's using existing features that we've always had, just make it a little bit more user-friendly. So what it's doing now is it's going to update our packages, and then it's going to start the migration. So just give it a few seconds.
That's the best kind of feature, though, where you don't have to build anything new, but reuse existing stuff that's already been built. Just make it, a little nicer.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
like the really cool part of that is like we're talking about this as part of NX21, but this works for any version of NX that you're migrating from. So even if you're on an older
right.
version, if you're using NX console, you can use that to migrate. And it's also going to take care of like that one major version at a time so that it's not going to take you all the way to NX21. If you're on NX18, it's going to step you through the way that we recommend of going like one major version at a time.
That's right.
If you're on NX18, I have more questions. I want to talk with you.
I think the power of this is like before you can always use your own tools. If you're comfortable with the terminal, you can do a lot of things there. But we're presenting in a way that we think you want the information to be presented, so that you can actually decide what to do. So, for example, here I haven't run any migrations yet, right? Like I just ran the migrate, and now my packages are up to date. But before I commit to the update, I can review this. So for some of them, if I'm like, you know what, this analog thing is not going to work in my workspace, even though I should update it, maybe I'll revert it for now, and then I can continue. So now if I say yes, continue, it's going to install all the remaining package updates, but it's going to skip the one that I chose not to do, which is the analog package. So now I get a nice ready to migrate prompt, and I can start the migration. Of course, because I'm doing a demo, give me 1 sec. Reload. The good thing too with this is that we don't have to you don't have to complete the migration. You can always resume it.
Why don't we
I guess this
skip
is also
that one for now,
it's also a good
Jack?
time to say if you see any errors, you can always like figure out what's going on. I'll skip it for now. I think I messed up my PNPM somehow. I'm not sure how, so I just skip over it and go to the one that actually works. So here, because something got applied, you can see the file changes. So if you have like multiple file changes, you see them listed here. And the cool thing is I can go to it and be like, you know what? I think this is not a good change. So I'm gonna undo and escape. And before I do that, because also show you what's going on underneath the hood. So at each migration step, you'll get a commit, and in the end, we'll squash everything. But for now, if I undo this, you'll see like this thing gets cleaned up, so it should no longer be there, right? Now I'm moved on to this. I can say, hey, what is this? And it's coming from Angular because, of course, to get the benefit of like continuous task, I do need to add this to my project.json because, again, this is not being inferred yet. This is using the executor and project.json. So that one looks good to me. So let me approve that. And now migration's finished. So like I mentioned, we squash everything by default, but I can also choose not to do that if you want to keep all the history there. But I like clean history, so I'm going to say, you know what, I'm good with one commit, and therefore I have migrated successfully to NX. One thing I didn't mention is like actually going through step by step. It's not just a matter of like looking at file changes and stuff. You can also take the time to run your build, your lint, just things that you're like, I'm not too sure if NX or like our migration handled everything in your workspace, because obviously we do as much as we can. There's always some variance in different workspaces, so take the time to like check your targets, make sure they all work before you migrate. Before you move on to the next migration. And once you fix up your stuff, then you click approve and go next. That fix that you did will be applied in addition to whatever the migration was doing. So it's pretty cool. That's pretty much it. Like Philip mentioned, just get the latest NX console version. And even if you're not ready for NX21, it is also available for any existing NX version. So if you're on 18 going to 19, that's fine. 19 going to 20, that's fine. If you're very adventurous, you can go from 18 to 21. Maybe not a good idea, but maybe it will work. So that's it.
I remember I updated a site from 15 to 20, and I wish I had this back then.
So I'll get the first question that we saw in the comments about this out of the way. You demoed it in VS Code. Is this available for JetBrains too?
No.
No.
No, not at this moment.
Okay.
We generally focus on VS Code first, but we will port any useful features like this back into IntelliJ.
All right. JetBrains users, get in the comments. Let Jack know how many of you there are.
There's dozens of us.
I mean, so technically the UI itself
Mhm.
is already there. It's the wiring up the initial interaction that's not there right now. So technically it shouldn't be that hard, but do not mark my words.
Oh, how many times in my career have I said it shouldn't be that hard? Spoiler alert, it's extremely hard. But Jack and Max, who have been working really hard on NX console, I'm sure will get it done and get it ported over. Cool. So let's move on to our next section. Jason, can you tell us about Gradle?
You're
Oh,
muted.
I think
He's
you're
muted.
I
He's
am
got me on
muted.
pins and needles.
Hello. Of course, I can tell you about Gradle. Am I also sharing my screen? You can put my screen
You're
up. Cool. So, we've been doing more work on Gradle. We released Gradle first in NX19, actually. And since then, we've been iterating on it more and more. And we've been putting it kind of through the paces on the Spring Boot repo. So this is, you might know, like a popular Java framework. It's been around for like 12 years. One thing they haven't figured out in 12 years is how to fix slow CI. So their CI at the moment, in the worst case scenario, is an hour 44 minutes. And thankfully with Gradle, you do have a cache, and most of the time you won't see this 100 minutes, but sometimes you will. If you're maybe touching the core of Spring Boot, right, you'll trigger a lot of different things that will bust the Gradle cache, and you'll have to check in CI. So I will demonstrate how we reduced that to 39 minutes, more respectable, and also, like, I don't know, just more to come in the future, but this is already a great improvement. So this is the NX Cloud run for that GitHub Actions run. And you can see there were 6,000 tasks that were run in CI. And these were all without cache. So this is like the worst case scenario. What did we do about it? And I'll jump into this analysis pane. I don't know if we've showed one of these in the live stream, but this is amazing. So what you can see here, I'll zoom in the screen, but then I'll also zoom in here, is we can see exactly what each agent was working on at each time, right? And you can see that at the beginning, wrong way. At the beginning, everyone's pretty busy. All 5 agents are doing work, and then you can see later on that one agent kind of like holds up the rest. And so unfortunately, no matter how many agents you have, we can't get past these roadblocks where like some task just needs to wait to finish. But because we have 5 agents instead of the one that was running in this GitHub Actions pipeline, throwing hardware at this problem, not too much hardware. So you can throw 5 agents here, you can throw 3 agents here, and you'll still see an improvement for your Gradle tasks. And yeah, that brings it down to 39 minutes roundabout. So yeah, if you're using Gradle and you are interested in getting faster pipelines, because who isn't, try out the NX Gradle plugin. And the best thing about the NX Gradle plugin, I'll show the docs. So the best thing about the Gradle plugin is that we can now install NX via Brew and Chocolatey. So you don't even actually need to install Node. For full transparency, like Node is installed under the hood, but it's just, you don't have to do it manually. And then you can run NX init on your Gradle workspace, and it will infer all the tasks from Gradle. So what we're doing actually is we have a dev.nx Gradle project graph plugin that is the Gradle plugin for NX, and it'll tell NX like, hey, like here's all the projects, here's all the tasks, and then NX will use this powerful distribution, powerful project graph, task graph to run this efficiently on multiple machines and get you down from the 100 minutes down to the 39 minutes. And there's even more work being done for atomizer. So now that we're inferring tasks, we can also split up those tests. So unfortunately, it's still a work in progress. This one doesn't show atomizer, but I'm pretty sure that when we get atomizer full and running for the Spring Boot repo, this time will go down even further. Atomizer is mature enough for most Java workspaces out there. So if you are working not on Spring Boot itself, but you are working on a Spring Boot application, then Atomizer should be good enough for you to use. And it will only get better as we continue to iterate on it. But yeah, that is the lowdown on Gradle. Gradle also has continuous tasks, so that's already in there.
That is such a cool. It's such a small thing to not have to install Node for NX, and like for like all the front end folks in the video, like installing Node, like you already have Node installed, but like backend developers, they tend to, it's like, well, I don't want to have to install that. I don't want Node on my system. Like talk to any backend developer, Java, .NET, Python. No. Node is like a no-go. And so like unblocking them from like having to like install Node to be able to use NX, like front end folks who thought Node was not that big a hurdle to get over, go talk to your backend folks. Tell them the future is here. You can use NX without Node installed.
Just don't tell them to run Node version after, because we do install it. But yes, we still love Node. It's great. It's just it's a shortcut.
The whole point of having the man in front of the curtain is to not pull back the curtain.
Okay. Forget I said that. Don't worry. Don't worry about it.
All right.
And so I want to highlight something else that was done in order to facilitate this. So I mentioned that we have a new Gradle plugin, and this was published to Maven, actually. And in order to publish it to Maven, we actually improved NX release in order to do that. So there's a few new features that are coming out as part of NX 21 for NX release. And the first big thing is we now have GitLab releases. So we had it so where you can release your changelog as a GitHub release. But if you don't use GitHub and you use GitLab, then now you can do the same thing for GitLab. So under the hood, what this meant is that we needed to create an abstraction over our kind of remote publishing. So this is now available. And not only is this available, we actually have the primitives to create any kind of remote publishing. So maybe Azure is next, maybe, I don't know, the GitHub registry is next. We'll see. But that is one thing that we've done. The other thing that we've done is we've also improved how we version things. So the way that the current NX release works is that it needs a file and it needs to use Semver to version. With NX 21, we don't need to do that anymore. So we've created yet another abstraction, and I'll show the code for this. That is called a version action. And this kind of replaces the generators that we used to have. So we had these version generators, which would generate a bunch of code changes. But this is kind of like the bulk of what the generator does. So by implementing a version action with all of these different things, now you can actually instruct NX like, hey, for these manifest files, so give it like package.json, you can have cargo tomls, you can have build.gradle files, pom.xml files, whatever you want as the file to update, create a version action for it. And then you can do things like, I guess, like calculate the new version, read the current version, all of these things you can define so that we could actually publish to Maven or to crates.io through NX release. So this is yet another improvement that we've done for NX release. So with those two things, I think that, I mean, there's more features out there, but that is about it for now.
You did have one thing on there that I don't even think we've talked about potentially. NX Cloud had a dark mode.
Oh yeah, it's just like normal for me, I guess, but I can share that again.
That's not in production yet, is it?
No, it's not. It's on
Oh,
staging.
well, you
Yeah.
can check out the NX
Spoilers.
repo to always see what's coming up next in NX Cloud. And if you like what you see, tell us and we can ship it faster, I guess. We already ship pretty fast, but if the public wants it, we can ship what you want faster.
We can ship even faster. Must go more fast.
Well, that's an amazing present that we're in for NX21. Jason, what does the future hold for NX? What's next on our roadmap?
You want more?
I always want more.
I was
The
gonna
people
take
demand it.
another vacation.
Please,
No,
sir,
just kidding.
more.
We got more. So I'll share my screen again. The first thing that I want to talk about is the roadmap that we published last year, actually. So we've been hard at work on this. We have, I would say, got a good chunk of it done. So the TUI is fully written in Rust. So we are more and more of NX core is being written in Rust. And hopefully you can feel the difference. You can feel the speed and just the power, right? Like the TUI, I don't think would be really that possible with JavaScript. But with Rust, like it's really great, I think. So speaking of the TUI, that is something that we've talked about doing for a while, and we've now done it. Better and faster TypeScript monorepos. We have also done a lot of work since NX20 to make the project references work for NX. And then coming soon is actually Angular 20. They will turn on project references by default. I hope I'm not stealing their thunder. But so you can look forward to when Angular 20 comes out. Angular will join the kind of rest of the frameworks and support the TypeScript project references. So we are already hard at work at supporting Angular 20. So we will have support in NX soon after they release. And then I will go further. I'll skip a little bit for the module federation part that we just talked about getting better with continuous tasks and the TUI. And then I'll go back to these sections up here. So going forward, we will be looking more at Node.js backend deployments and also Java deployments. So how do you deploy via NX release your backend applications, your front-end applications, and all of this, right? So this is coming later in 2025. Smarter monorepos with AI. We didn't talk much about it here, but I'm sure you've seen a ton of content that we've pushed out in terms of how NX is allowing developers to save more product or like be more productive by using AI. And the overall gist here is that monorepos are great for humans because it's like everything in one place. If I want to kind of see like whatever's going on in NX or a NX plugin, right? Like I can go into apparently the ESLint plugin for React, like all in my repo, right? So monorepos is already serving me as a human, like information about everything the project contains, right? And everything the product contains. But what it's also good for is using it with AI. So let me, I guess, just do a quick last demo. I'll open this in Windsurf. Maybe I'll open it in Cursor. I don't know. Windsurf takes a long time to wake up, I guess. It says catching a wave. I don't know exactly what that means. Oh, no, it's awake. It's awake. So I can ask how many projects are in this workspace. And so the AI can actually use the same information that NX gives to things like the project graph, the task graph, and AI will look at that information and be able to just count how many projects are in here. It can analyze what dependencies are there, and you can ask your agent, right? Like, hey, like what does NX know about my workspace, and have a more architectural awareness, like in the agent to, help you out, right? So cool, a little demo there, but that is a sneak peek of just more to come, actually. We will be delving way deeper into AI. There's already other features out there, but the gist is monorepos are great for AI. So yet another reason to use a monorepo, yet another reason to use NX. And then expanded Java support. So I showed Gradle, and Gradle is great, but in talking to Java developers, Maven is still very much preferred by a lot of people. So coming soon will be Maven support. You can look forward to that. And I'll talk a little bit more about the broader future that we didn't really have in mind for, I guess, like 6 months ago, 7 months ago. But along with Java support, we will also be starting to go down more language supports. So some of the ones that you might see coming soon are .NET support. There's been a great community plugin written by one of our team members, Gregory, and we will be bringing that under the first party support for .NET in NX. Other language that we might be doing soon, or is that it's like at the forefront of our kind of pipeline, our plan, is PHP support. So we have customers looking for PHP support, Java support, .NET support. So these will probably be the languages you'll be seeing soon. But in terms of the future of NX, for certain, I can say that NX has the potential to run a lot of these different languages and allow you to work in these different languages while staying in the same kind of holistic context that you need for building a product, right? So look forward to Maven support, look forward to PHP support, .NET support. And if I didn't pick your favorite language, it's not because we won't do it, it's because we have to start somewhere. We have to just take another step for it. And feel free to, I don't know, open up a discussion on the NX repo and say what you're using NX for and what you want to use NX for and what you expect out of NX's support for whatever it is you want, really.
So NX and PHP, we're all getting Lambos, I guess.
Awesome. We're definitely getting some love from the comments. .NET support. Love to see that. We did have one question on any focus on micro front ends.
Maybe the demo was missed, but like basically with NX21, with RSPack and micro front ends, like I've used a module federation setup, it's now much better, meaning like we don't generate non-standard RSPack or Webpack config, right? Everything is just done through the RSPack or Webpack CLI. With RSPack, you also get continuous tasks and everything enabled. So it's just a much cleaner setup. So basically all the effort that Column, who's doing most of the work, has put in is basically there in X21. And moving forward, we'll just be looking at maybe helping people migrate. If there are certain things that we're not doing yet in our migration generators, we can look into that. But in terms of like the feature, it's pretty much there. I don't know if there's something specific that people are looking for. You can always open a discussion and let us know. And then you can also hop on Discord. You can also come to the NX office hours every Thursday if you want to like bring something to our attention. So lots of avenue to get feedback.
I also threw in the blog post for the Module Federation improvements that Colin wrote about, so definitely check that out.
Yeah, and if you're not using Module Federation to do micro front ends, if you're using some other tool or you're using something that's like homegrown, you can still benefit from things like continuous tasks. You'll just need to add some of that configuration yourself, so you can get the same DX that we have for like Module Federation with whatever micro front end framework tool set that you're using. check out the continuous tasks article and video. We specifically call out like how to add continuous tasks to custom commands. So, even if we don't have, sort of like first party support for your micro front end solution, you can get the same benefits. You just have to do a little bit of the wiring yourself. All right. That is all we had planned for this Friday. We've covered so much for like NX21. The terminal UI is making things easier than ever. Continuous tasks is improving that DX, module federation, Gradle support, a better NX release so that you can use it across ecosystem. What did I miss? I'm looking at my
Migrate UI so that
Migrate
you can get these
UI.
new features.
Yeah, so that's exactly what we should be doing. It's Friday. Use the Migrate UI, get yourself up on NX21, and then just push that to production. That's what everyone is doing today. That's why they are so quiet in the comments. Everybody's too busy like migrating and pushing to prod on a Friday. They're looking to have a good time.
Nothing bad can happen if you do that.
No, that's the on-call person's problem. I'm out at 5, All right. Well, thank you, Mike, Jason, and Jack for your time this afternoon. And we will follow up with a recap of everything that we've covered in NX21 on our social channels. Stay in touch and be ready for the next release. All right. Ciao, everyone.
Cool.
See you, everyone.